On June 24, at the think tank, the Hudson Institute, U.S. former President Trump's CIA chief and Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, delivered a speech, suggesting that America has an essentially God-assigned mission to control the world, so as to preserve freedom and democracy for everybody, and that victory against Russia and China is therefore obligatory for the United States and its allies, not only to serve God but also to serve God's people, because central to the economic well-being of American families is a United States that leads. It leads all across the world, both in military and in economic power, and so, we must act in concert with our allies to effect strategic clarity, unmistakable to both Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping. We must prevent the formation of a Pan-Eurasian colossus incorporating Russia, but led by China. To do that, we have to strengthen NATO. Furthermore, the AUKUS Union, the recently US-UK created Asian military alliance, should be folded into this expanded security alliance, so that NATO will become a global alliance against Russia and China. In order to preserve America's world leadership, his basic argument was that it's either us or them, and they must be conquered, because God wants it, and we serve him. Pompeo did not argue that World War III will entail sacrifices for any of God's people, but instead that winning this war will be necessary for the future safety and prosperity of the peoples of America, and of all countries that it will be leading, to conquer Russia and China. The current U.S. Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, or even President Biden himself, could have delivered this speech for themselves, with remarkably little modification, because the beliefs that it expresses are mainstream, and not only in the US, but also in UK, and even in most of Europe, except for Russia and Belarus. Pompeo's personal background is a fundamentalist Christian whose entire life has been spent in the military-industrial complex and oil industries, and politics. He was first in his class at West Point, an editor of the Harvard Law Review, and co-founded Air Aerospace, before entering politics in 2011. In this video we will highlight the key parts of his speech. America and the nations of the world cannot continue the pretense that the war in Ukraine can end in a negotiated peace, which mollifies Russia. For such a peace cannot be negotiated with Vladimir Putin. Ukraine must win this war. It must win this war decisively if it is to realize peace, independence and freedom. Same goes for Europe. This war, Putin's war, is to expunge Ukraine as a sovereign nation and as a people. Ukraine is to be folded into the new Russian Empire that seeks to become a rump of the Soviet Union. 9, count them, 9 American presidents from each of our political parties. 9 American presidents dismembered the Soviet Empire at enormous great human costs. To allow it to even begin to be reconstitution unthinkable. Putin's illegal assault of war represents a planned genocide, which is deliberate obliteration of a people, as defined by the 1948 United Nations. Though each genocide is different and unique, as John mentioned, the one taking place in Xinjiang, this genocide that we're seeing today is like the Holodomor engineered by Stalin that murdered millions of Ukrainians, and it must be named to be fought. Putin may or may not be ill, but what is certain is that he cannot contain his murderous fury. That he still leads a country exemplifies Russia's decline into the abyss of madness. Both a mass murderer and a serial killer. Putin is that. I pray that Russia will reclaim its soul, its country's soul, but it cannot do so as long it is led by a man who does not evince any concern for the horrific carnage he has wrought, or any concern for his own people. Putin has this dream, to re-establish a lost empire. If America behaves properly, it will not occur, and we know this. We know that the dreams of dictators quickly become nightmares. It is my conviction that America and the West must acknowledge the centrality of hydrocarbon energy to the world geopolitics, and indeed to man's ability, humanity's ability to adapt, a cornerstone of life. Had the current administration maintained American energy dominance rather than prostrate itself to radicals, America could have led the way in securing the world's hydrocarbon needs during this war. But because America's abdicated this vital role, the war in Ukraine is compounding the pain that consumers are feeling today to cool their homes and to drive their vehicles. These nations were unchained in 1991 because of the collapse of the Soviet Union, and we dare not let any of them be recaptured by Russia. I believe Ukraine has found its George Washington in the embodiment of a single man. His name is Volodymyr Zelensky. America and the nations of the world cannot continue the pretense that the war in Ukraine can end in a negotiated peace, which mollifies Russia. For such a peace cannot be negotiated with Vladimir Putin. Ukraine must win this war. It must win this war decisively if it is to realize peace, independence and freedom. Same goes for Europe. This war can be won if America and our allies supply a range of our most capable conventional weapons to Kyiv. Dauntlessness is needed to end the war in Ukraine. Seriousness of purpose. NATO solidarity is essential. Germany and France must not defer to any of the Kremlin's wishes. America and Britain have supplied multiple launch rocket systems. We must not give heed to Russia's false claim that it believes its borders are threatened. This is silliness. I believe deeply that the weakness that was expressed in America's undisciplined withdrawal from Afghanistan was interpreted by Vladimir Putin as a green light. As Secretary of State, I built upon my work as the director of the CIA to aid President Trump in formulating concrete terms that would have allowed for force reductions and withdrawal from Afghanistan, but without the debacle. We know China's intention. Its intent on dominating global infrastructure development through its Belt and Road Initiative. But this is subterfuge. It hides. It's a deceit. China's Belt and Road Initiative is a form of imperialism. It is the manifestation of a corrupt intent to entrap less developed countries with promises of loans and infrastructure improvements. Every president since Truman believed Taiwan's existence is crucial to America's defense. I believe that with all my heart. The 1970 Taiwan Relations Act requires that we maintain Taiwan's defensive abilities to thwart an attack. But we're now in danger of becoming complacent. The capture of Taiwan would grant the following objectives to Beijing. It would severely reduce American influence in the Indo-Pacific. Our relationship with Taiwan should be reinforced at every turn. It's become a shining example in Taiwan of democracy for Asian peoples, and a hope to all of Asia. Central to the economic well-being of American families is a United States that leads. It leads all across the world, both in military and in economic power. I hope that my words today will galvanize American support for Ukraine and for Europe, for such aid is essential if we're to enforce the national security policies that place American public interest as of paramount importance. We must act in concert with our allies to effect strategic clarity, unmistakable to both Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping. We must prevent the formation of a Pan-Eurasian colossus incorporating Russia, but led by China. To do that, we have to strengthen NATO. Moving past our current geostrategic focus, the United States must help in building of the 3 lighthouses for liberty. These beacons should be centered on nations that have great strife: Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan. They can be the hubs of new security architecture that links alliances of free nations globally, reinforcing the strengths of each member state. In time, linking these 3 bastions with NATO, as well as the new and expanded security framework for the Indo-Pacific, will form a global alliance for freedom. This will benefit America. The need for this network of alliances is patent and cannot come too soon. The world has become too small for free countries to not be part of something greater, which will forestall armed conflict rather than react to it. The people of America are committed to seeing Ukraine emerge from this war as an undivided nation which will be a beacon to all, to show the world the primacy of freedom, determination, and of love. Thank you, and God bless you.